Yeah, today's lecture we are going to be discussing about the governance, risk and compliance labs. So we'll be focusing on the risk qualitative and quantitative analysis, the GDPR and the rest. So I'm going to actually show you how to create a graph and how to also calculate the quantitative analysis. So let's get started with this. So there are three pillars of governance, risk, compliance. We have the governance, risk, and compliance. The governance, this is where the setting, security setting strategy, policy, and objective align with the business goal. That's the governance. While the risk, identify, analyzing, and mitigating risk to acceptable level. The compliance ahead to the external law like the GDPR that is used in EU and here in UK, and also the HIPAA which is used in America, and the internal policy. GRC professionals translate technical problem into business terms that that executive understand about the currency, the reputation, and also the legal liability. So chapter one, which is the risk analysis, the lab one, which is the risk analysis, we are going to focus on the quantitative and qualitative risk analysis. So there are two approaches to risk assessment. We have the first one here is the quantitative risk. This is used to the measurable numerical data like the currency, the percentage, and time. The strength of this is it provides clear financial justification for security spending, while the weakness is rely on accurate data which can be difficult to obtain for cyber threats. The qualitative risk uses scale. So you tend to rate the risk in high, medium, and low in the scale of 1 to 5. The strength of this is speed and simplicity. Doesn't require complex financial data, but the weakness here, experts might rate same risk differently. I hope you guys are still there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. My connection went off before. I don't know.
Oh, okay, okay. So the quantitative analysis. So we are going to be using the clinical the clinic healthcare clinical server for the quantitative analysis. So let's analyze healthcare clinical server vulnerable to ransomware attack using quantitative risk formula. So take for instance the healthcare asset is valued to 100,000 US dollar, including hardware, data value, recreation lost, business, and potential fine. So the exposure factor is 20%. Estimated loss from single ransomware with no good backup. So take for instance the asset value in the hospital, the is subjected to 20% lost because there's no backup when there is a ransomware attack. So the single loss expectancy, which is SLE, value is equals to the I I get. Do you guys remember this formula last time? The single
Which
loss
formula? Which
expectancy,
formula is that?
the single loss expectancy, the annual rate occurrence, and the annual loss expectancy. If you can go back to the slide I I teach you guys the last time, you will remember. So
I think this is my first time I've seen this. Probably was my class that day.
the formula is there.
Okay, continue. Shall continue.
Okay. So now to calculate for this, the single loss expectancy, you the asset value, which is this asset value times the rate of exposure. So the rate of exposure is 20%, while the asset value here is 100,000 US dollar. That is what you are saying here, the single loss expectancy. So the asset value is 100,000, while the rate of exposure is 20%. 20% of 100,000 is 0.2. So when you calculate both of them, which is 100,000 times 0.2, it will give you 20% per incident. Okay? So, oh, okay. Someone is back to my explanation. So let me start all over again with this so that Jace will follow along. Quantitative quantitative analysis, we are going to be using this hospital server that is vulnerable to ransomware attack as an example. So they have the asset value of 100,000 US dollar, which include the hardware where the like the computer, the server, the router, and the switches, and also the potential fine if there is if the stuff actually succeed. So that is 100,000, the asset value. The rate of exposure, which is the exposure factor, is 20% from a single ransomware incident with no good backup. So if you remember the last time, the slide I showed you guys how the formula to calculate for this, which is for the single loss expectancy, the annual rate of occurrence, and the annual loss expectancy. So the single loss expectancy, you have the asset value, which is the 100,000 times the exposure factor, which is 20%. So now the 100,000 here and the 20% of 100,000 is 20% of 100 is 0.2. Okay, 20% of 100 is 0.2. So now 100,000 times 0.2 to give you 20,000. So the question, oh, the annual rate of occurrence is 1/5. It happens every 5 years, which is 1/5 according to them. So 1/5 is equals to 0.2, which is the expected once every 5 years. So now to calculate for annual loss expectancy, you calculate the single loss expectancy times the annual rate of occurrence. So the Single loss expectancy is 20,000 times 0.2 for the annual rate of occurrence, which is $4,000 yearly lost. Okay, so I'm trying to calculate why the risk assessment is actually important in organization. Why you must carry out risk assessment so that you can be able to calculate what you tend to lose in the organization if you carry out proper risk assessment. So benefit of analysis of mitigation, the patch management investment. This there is a vulnerability which is on patch data and a 50% chance that attackers will successfully exploit the vulnerability. Note this: 50% chance that attacker will successfully exploit the vulnerability. So in reality, the true probability of attacker succeeding in any given year is, let's calculate again, which is the real annual rate of occurrence now, which is base annual rate of occurrence times vulnerability of exploitation chance, which is, if you can remember, 0.2 is the annual rate of occurrence here. Okay, and we are told 50% of the unpatched server likely to, the chance that attackers will succeed per exploit vulnerability is 50%, which is 0.5. So now we are calculating the 0.5 times the 50%, which is 0.2 times the 50% of 100 will give you 0.5. So if you calculate both of them, it will give you 0.1. So the real annual rate of occurrence is equals to base annual rate of occurrence and the vulnerability exploitation, which are already calculated here. So to adjust everything to align with the annual loss expectancy, remember the annual loss expectancy we have here is 4,000 after we calculate for this. So now we already have the single loss expectancy, which is 20,000. Then 20,000 times this one here, it will now give you 2,000 per year. So having this 2,000, you are going to lose just 2,000 is actually good when it comes to taking the analysis for mitigation in your organization. So when you calculate all this, you're able to discover that when you carry out proper analysis, risk analysis, you tend to see what you can lose when you don't carry out proper vulnerability assessment and patching in your organization. But if you do that very well, you should be able to minimize what you are going to spend whenever there is a cybersecurity attack in your organization. So let me show you the because after you calculate all this, you are going to demonstrate to the executive with a chart. You write the chart in Excel sheet and plot the graph. So let me show you how it look like in Excel sheet. I hope you can see the Excel sheet. So the old annual loss expectancy without the risk analysis, this is this is what you tend to lose. But when you have the new annual risk expectancy, everything will have to go down. That is the calculation here. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. Can hear you.
Okay. The qualitative analysis for e-commerce website, the risk metric. So we are going to create a risk metric using likelihood, impact, and the scale is 1 to 5 to prioritize the risk. So we have systems here: threat, vulnerability, likelihood, and impact. So let me explain this better. We have system. Take for instance, an attacker attack your system, which is the server. The kind of attack that the server responds to is DDoS attack, which is distributed denial of service attack. Why we this attack be successful? Because there is no, which is the vulnerability, there is no Cloudflare or WAF to actually protect the website, the web server from DDoS attack. The likelihood of this to occur is 4 on the scale of 4, while the impact this will cause to the business is 5, which is very critical, very high. The CVE score, which is common vulnerability exposure, is 20, which is very high, critical. It's critical. The priority is critical. So here now we have another system, which is the database server. The threat the database is prone to is SQL injection attack. Why? Because the vulnerability here is outdated library. If you don't update your library, then you are this you in SQL injection attack is bound to happen. So the likelihood of this to actually happen is 3, while the impact is actually is still high, which is 5. So if they gain access to the database, they are going to get information from the database, like the credit card, the personal information, in the personal health information if it is a healthcare. But if it is e-commerce, they have to get access to the credit card. So this is actually very high. The CVE score is 15, while the priority is high. So now the system here we have is as employee laptop. The attack this one can prompt to is data theft. Why this will occur? Because there is no no disk encryption, because you did not use bit BitLocker to actually lock the disk, or you did not have a proper backup. So the likelihood for this to occur is 2, and the impact is 4. So the score is actually low in a way, which is 8, but it still mean why the priority is medium. The risk score is equal to likelihood times impact. Address high score first for minimum impact. So let me show you the chart for this as well. So you you need to demonstrate this in chart. So we have the web server, and the database. We have the SQL injection. Let me expand this. SQL injection. Yeah. We have the system. We have the system, the threat, vulnerability, likelihood, the impact, and the score, risk score, the priority. So everything is actually here. So we will demonstrate it in the form of graph. So this demonstrates the is critical because it's 20. The score is 20, the risk score. The database is 15, while the employee laptop is 8. So this is how you are going to demonstrate it to the executive as a cybersecurity analyst. You demonstrate this to the executive for them to have clear understanding why it's actually very important to carry out proper vulnerability assessment and how to mitigate attack should the case the attack wants to happen in future. So you have to address the vulnerability as fast as possible. So they will have a clear understanding. This is actually important to the organization. So now the second lab here, we are going to be discussing the GDPR. So GDPR is more than a one-time project. It's a continuous project. This is not something you will practice and then you you practice once and then you will not practice it again. No, this is a life goal. As long as you are dealing with people's information, so you must ensure to protect the information for them. So we have three key principles of GDPR, which is lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. The lawfulness, you must have a valid legal reason to process data, consent, contract, or legitimate interest. While the fairness, process data in a way that people would reasonably expect that the the stuff is not going to harm them. You have to make them understand. You have to be clear with them that processing your data, I guarantee you that attacker will not get hold of your information. You guarantee them. Why the transparency? You must be open. Everything must be clear. Be clear about what you are doing with the personal data. You must tell them your intention. If I'm going to be collecting your information, I'm not going to collect it for malicious activity. I'm going to get it because of I need it for so this social stuff and this social stuff. You need to be clear with them. So we have the flow diagram. The flow diagram is your critical is the most critical GDPR. Do you, if I may ask, do you know the full meaning of GDPR? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
So do you guys know the full meaning of GDPR?
No, no, no. I'm about to check.
Can you check? Because I don't
Mr.
want to tell
John,
you guys. I just want you people to be
Mr. John, he
yes,
said it's D or GBT, GDPR, right?
yes, GDPR. What is the full meaning?
That's like
Is it not General Data Production Regulation?
Okay, good. Protection, not production, protection,
Okay.
protection. So the flow diagram, let me show you the flow diagram here. I have the flow diagram because everything you are doing, you must show them in a plain manner so that they will understand very well. So we have the users and regulators here. So the users input their data to the CRM system, and it must be encrypted because you guarantee them that you are going to secure their data for them. So it must be encrypted whenever the data is moving from one platform to the other. So now the users input their data to a CRM system. So from the CRM system, it move to the email server, which is also encrypted. So from the email server, it move to the payment gateway, which is also encrypted. So everything still goes back to the database server. So going back to the database server, you see it's also encrypted. So if you are sending data that is not encrypted, attackers will get hold of it. So GDPR will simply mandate everyone, every organization that is processing information of the EU citizen must protect the information, the data securely. That is why you are seeing this encrypted here, encrypted. You are supposed to do this. Now I'm just trying to show you guys how the chart is going to look like, but I'm still going to send you guys the chart. So you are supposed to practice it and then draw your own chart. GDPR compliance checklist. So it goes beyond yes or no. Provide concrete evidence for each requirement. We have the lawful basics. The requirement, one of the requirement here is lawful basic, which is the consent. So the status is good. The evidence to sign off form must have on check box, on check or check link to specific privacy policy. So whenever you are signing up in a website, that website must have a check list under like this. I read and comply. You understand? So if you actually check this, that means you are signing up for newsletter. So if you don't check this and the platform send you a newsletter without your consent, you have every reason to actually sue them because you did not request for it. So now terms and condition is mandatory in any website. You must read the terms and condition. That is why you see it here and before you can be able to sign up to any website. So GDPR will simply make it mandatory. That is the reason most of the time you see check box whenever you are signing up for something. So the second requirement we have here is the right to access. What this simply means that you have right to access your personal data, process, exit, but manual, 3 days. So this one, you have right to access your personal data and you have the right to exit if you want to exit in any platform. It is your right as a user. So the third requirement we have here is the data protection by design. New feature launch without privacy review or the DPA, which is the data protection impact analysis. That's the full meaning of this DPA. Breach notification. I made you guys understand this. I made you guys understand this the last time. If there is any breach, you have maximum of 72 hours to notify those that are involved in that breach, those that are impacted in that breach. Take for instance, attacker get hold of the client information in your website. You have the minimum of 72 hours to notify them that your website was hacked, but you guys are finding way to actually contain everything and there's no cause for alarm. Just notify them. So the action plan priority, we have the high priority, the medium priority, and the low priority. The high priority, which is the appoint data protection officer. Appoint data protection officer. You must appoint data protection officer like the ICO. And here we have draft at and test 72 hours. Okay, draft and test 72 hours bridge notification plan. This is also a high priority. You must notify them. You have the drive and test notification plan in place. While the third one we have here is to create incident escalation contact. So whenever there is an incident, you must make sure that the escalation contact is actually available. These are high priority when it comes to GDPR. While the medium priority is implement data retention policy. Auto delete after 2 years of inactivity. Is medium, is not, this one is not high. So take for instance, client does not use your platform after 2 years, you auto delete it. While establish privacy review policy a process. The low priority here, we have the add download my data feature to user profile. They can access, that means they have the right to access their data. Enhance privacy policy readability. Implement consent management, which I showed you just now. So the third lab here is the business impact analysis, which is BIA. This is governance. This is not something you would be, it's not technical. So that's the reason it's like this. I hope you guys are still there.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay. Understanding recovery time objective and the recovery point objective. The business impact analysis answer what hurt most if it breaks, and how long until the pain is fatal. Two critical metrics emerge here. One of them is the recovery time objective, and the second one is the recovery point of objective. The ROTO, the time you have to fix it before business impact become unacceptable. This is the time it require you to face any breach or any attack in your business before it become unacceptable. Example, when a web server must be online within 2 hours. Take for instance, attacker hack into your website, your web server now. The minimum acceptable time is 2 hours. If the maximum acceptable time is 2 hours, you must take it back online for the business to actually continue. This indicates your recovery solution: hot site for 1 hour, which is ROTO, recovery time of objective. Cold site is okay for 72 hours. While the recovery point objective, the amount of data you can afford to lose in an incident. Example, can lose up to 1 hour of transaction data. So do you remember the very first lab I taught you guys on how to back up your file? So here this is what it means. You must back up your file at least every 1 hour. So should the case of an incident, the data that is going to be missing in the organization, the acceptable loss should not be above 1 hour. Critical function impact analysis. We have the business function here, which is the online processing payment. The second one here is the EHR, which is electronic health record for patient record. The third one here is the email, internal email. So let's analyze this. So when it comes to online processing payment, the maximum tolerable downtime is 15 minutes. Take for instance, in your website now, a client wants to purchase goods from your website. They already put the item in cart, and they want to process the payment, and the payment gateway is not available. So definitely the client will lose interest and look for another website to go and purchase that item. So this is what it means. You only have the maximum tolerable downtime for this to occur is 15 minutes. So what this means now is the financial impact per hour is 50,000 US dollar. That is acceptable. And the impact here is loss of customer trust and abandoned cart. So when it comes to electronic health record, the durable downtime is 1 hour and the amount is 10,000 US dollar. The business impact here is unable to treat patient compliance fine, because they are going to fine you if this actually occur. So the third one, which is the internal email, the tolerable downtime can be 4 hours and the amount is 1,000 US dollar. Slow internal communication, to slow the internal communication down. Mitigation strategy by system. So we'll be talking about the mitigation for payment system, the patient data, and the email system. To mitigate for payment system, use high available cloud provider with multi-zone deployment. Implement transaction queue to ensure no sales, no loss during brief outage. No sales, no loss during brief outage. No sale lost. Client the patient database, real-time database replication standby. So this is talking about backup. You must back up patient information. So take for instance, you are setting up a server now. You must ensure that you have the backup The backup can be can be in the cloud or can be on site, whichever platform you are using. So the email, to mitigate email attack, you a cloud based like Microsoft Azure, the Micro 365 with strong SLA and build in redundancy to eliminate single point of failure. Framework. The security framework. We have this cybersecurity mapping. Cybersecurity framework mapping. A common cybersecurity language. This is a common cybersecurity language. This cybersecurity framework provides structured communication about security program with management, auditors, and partners. It's not a checklist, but a framework to assess current state, target desire and state, and prioritize improvements. Function, we have the protect. So the category here, we have the identity management. So current implementation, where you implement this, because I teach you guys the last time where to implement this. The Microsoft Active Directory, where we set the password, the minimum password required length to be 12. The GDPR, the group policy, you screenshot the group policy because I teach you the last time how to enforce group policy for HRO checklist. The gap this one is having is no multi-factor authentication for admin, no auto the provisioning. The priority is high. The second function here we have is protect as well, which is the category is data security. The current implementation is to encrypt the disk in your laptop. How do you encrypt it? By using BitLocker. So the evidence is you enforce BitLocker policy in the organization. So the gap, customer database unencrypted, no data classification, which is also critical. Tabletop exercise, you are supposed to do this. I guess, okay, yeah. This is the the governance aspect of it. Governance risk compliance. So do you guys have any question? Hello?
No, no question from me.
Okay, okay. But do you guys understand this? If I may
Yeah, I
ask.
understand. Yeah, I understand.